गुड इवनिंग माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ क्लास 12। मैं अरुण कुमार आपके पास आया हूँ एक डिडक्शन लेकर, डेरिवेशन लेकर। तो आपका जो लाइट का चैप्टर बनता है रिफ्रैक्शन ऑफ लाइट, उसमें कई डेरिवेशन हैं। जिस डेरिवेशन में सबसे पहला और इम्पॉर्टेंट डेरिवेशन बनता है लेंस मेकर्स फॉर्मूला। तो इसको लेंस मेकर्स फॉर्मूला किस लिए कहा जाता है? जो फॉर्मूला मैं यहाँ पर डिराइव करना जा रहा हूँ वो फॉर्मूला है लेंस मेकर्स फॉर्मूला। Why it is called lens makers formula? Because with this formula the manufacturer they make lens with the particular focal length. Actually in lens makers formula the focal length is related with the radius of the curvature of the two surfaces of the convex lens, and as well as it is also related with the refractive index. So before making lens makers formula, certain assumptions are there. In certain assumptions, one of the assumption is that the lens should be thin. Number two, aperture should be small. Then the object which has to be taken, it should be kept on the principal axis, and the object should be a point object. Then incident ray, refracted ray, they should make a small angle with the principal axis. So these, and also we have to take certain new Cartesian measurements which already we have learned in class 10 as well. So I'll write certain assumptions on the board. Just see it and note it down please. Okay, the assumptions are: number one, the lens should be thin. I'll let you know why the lens should be thin, because both the poles, the measurement of both the poles should be taken from the center of the lens. Then the object should be point object. The object should be placed on the principal axis, as I already have said you. The aperture should be small enough. The incident refracted ray should make a small angles with the principal axis, and new convention signs to be maintained, which already I have learned as I have said you in class 10. Now I'll make a diagram, suitable diagram for this. Try to understand from the diagram. Okay, already we have known what are the assumptions to be made in lens makers formula. Now, so this is the lens. Already you can see from this diagram where C is the center of the lens, P1, P2 with the poles, C1, C2 are the center of curvature, and R1, R2 are the radius of the curvature. O is the point object on the principal axis, and mu1 is the refractive index in the radial medium, mu2 is the refractive index of the material. Now considering the surface, this is the surface x p1y and other surface is x p2y. So while considering the surface x p1y, we are going to assume that the material medium is beyond x p1y. Then what happens when here there is a point object O which is on the principal axis? So the incident falls over this point, and finally thinking of this as a beyond x p1y, we get image here I1. So from this we can write it as, number one, we can write it as mu1 by p1o plus mu2 by p1 I1 is equals to mu2 minus mu1 by p1 c1. But since we have assumed that the material medium is beyond the surface x p1y, but in actual form the material medium doesn't form so, then what happens for this x p2y, we get the I1 becomes the virtual image for this surface, and finally we get the image I on the principal axis. So from this we can get it as mu1 by p2 mu1 by p2i minus mu2 by P2 I1 is equals to mu2 minus mu1 by P2 C2. So this is equation 1 and this is equation 2. Since already we have considered that the lengths to be thin, so P1 is approximately similar to point C and P2 is approximately similar to point C. So instead of P1, the equation 1 can written as, now the equation instead of P1 we are going to write down here because it is a very thin glass, very thin length. So what we can do is here mu1 from 1, what we get? CO plus mu2 CI1 is equals to mu2 minus mu1 by C1. This is third. Again from this equation what we get is mu1 considering P2 similar to C, point C, so mu1 Ci minus mu2 Ci1 is equals to mu2 minus mu1 by C2. This is the equation 4. Now you see on adding equation 3 and 4, when we add 3 and 4, we get this gets cancelled off and finally what we get is, so on adding we get this formula. Now applying the Cartesian sign, we have CO is equals to minus U, we can put over here mu1 by minus EU plus Ci is equal to plus V. Here it is minus V because against the incident ray, Ci is equal to plus V. So mu1 by plus V is equals to mu2 minus mu1. 1 by CC1. CC1 is R1. That is 1 by R1. Then this is R2. So minus 1 by R2. Now taking mu1 common. Now taking mu1 common and getting divided whole through it, we get minus 1 by U plus 1 by V equals to mu2 by mu1 minus 1 into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. Now this can be written as mu, so finally we get 1 by V minus 1 by U is equals to mu minus 1 into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. This is what we say is lens maker's formula. If you have any kind of doubt to understand, just comment in my comment box.